as the binary numerical system now forms the foundation of modern computer programming, 0 is essential to the development of all digital tools as well, like the personal computer, the internet, and the latest and greatest technological innovation, Bitcoin. So more than just a new monetary technology, Bitcoin is actually an entirely new economic paradigm. It is an uncompromisable base money protocol for a global, digital, non-state economy. But to understand what makes Bitcoin different, we have to first understand a concept from Nassim Taleb called path dependence. And path dependence is the sensitivity of an outcome to the order of events that led to it. So in the broadest sense, it means that history has inertia. So for instance, if you take a shower and then dry yourself off, you get a drastically different result than if you dry yourself off and then shower. So the order of events matters. And so what this means is once we get started down a particular pathway, breaking away from socio-political inertia can become impossible. For instance, imagine if the world tried to standardize onto a different size of electrical outlet. Consumers, manufacturers, suppliers would all resist this costly change unless one of two things happened. Either there was a huge prospective gain in terms of efficiency or economization offered by the technology, right? So that would be a pull method, an incentive for the suppliers and consumers to adopt this new standard. Or we could have, and that would be kind of the free market method, I would say, or we could have the unfree market method, which would be the push, which would be a super organized group of human beings imposing the change onto another, which I would say is the unfree or socialistic approach to change. So Bitcoin, interestingly, was launched into the world as a one-of-a-kind technology, which is a non-state digital money issued on a perfectly fixed, diminishing, and predictable supply curve. So to understand path dependence, imagine if someone tried to launch new Bitcoin today. Bitcoin was originally released into a world that had no conception of Bitcoin, right? So it was able to grow organically, and it was released strategically, into this chat room of cypherpunks that adopted it gradually, and it was adopted to exchanges, and then became adopted more widely, and we think could evolve to become a global reserve asset at some point, as many Bitcoin bulls believe. So if you imagine today someone tried to launch a competing product or project, we'll call it New Bitcoin, it would necessarily have very weak chain security, as the mining network would have to develop from scratch. It would have very low liquidity and have very low network effects. And money competes based on those qualities. Like the liquidity and network effects of money is what gives it value in the first place. So the first mover advantage is very important in this space. And so we saw this with the launch of Bitcoin Cash, which was basically a fork of Bitcoin. So it had the same monetary policy. And essentially what happened is that it forked the social layer of Bitcoin, the social contract, spinning off two slightly weaker social contracts. So you had Bitcoin Core and Bitcoin Cash. And, as we've seen, and I'll show you what it looks like. And this is just what Bitcoin's hash rate has done over the years. It's, exploded. And this is Bitcoin Cash priced in Bitcoin terms since its launch. And I like to joke here that, Bitcoin Cash is considering a rebrand to Bitcoin Crash, because that weaker social contract that Bitcoin Cash represented could not compete with Bitcoin Core. So it's as if the discovery of absolute scarcity for money, it's a one-time thing. If you try to replicate it, the value just collapses back into Bitcoin, essentially. And we could take that a step further and imagine, even if there was a new Bitcoin released with a diminishing or a deflationary monetary policy, the question then becomes, how do you determine who benefits from the deflation of the monetary policy? How does the economic benefit get accrued to market participants? And so what would happen is that nodes and miners, they would, fork and jockey for position to maximize their economic accrual of the deflationary monetary policy, which would lead to a disarray of the monetary network and cause participants to collapse back into Bitcoin. So again, it's as if absolute scarcity for money is the perfect Schelling point or center of gravity for a monetary social contract that we have.